So I wanted to do this quick video on why some of the physical symptoms show up in us as we kind of venture into the dark night of the soul and try and find our way through it and come out of it, hopefully, eventually. Or we get very used to being in it, and in fact we can even grow and indulge from being in it. Because if there's one thing dark night of the soul will always do, it will continuously make you ask questions of yourself. And if we can learn during the dark night of the soul to not keep asking questions about like our future, who am I going to become? And you might be frightened of the person that you think you're going to become. If we can actually channel that energy, which will come naturally, guys, as you do progress into it and you start to realize that feeling down actually can't hurt you. It's just the way that you're feeling. But that in itself can't actually hurt you. And the thoughts that you have, if you will eventually start to realize to not attach to those thoughts, and they are just thoughts that are just coming up. They're not actually defining the person you are, unless again you attach to them and you keep questioning the same thought over and over. Why am I like that? Why did I get this? Why is this happening to me? Who am I going to become? I'm never going to get there. Oh God, I'm so stupid. So if we don't do this to ourselves and we learn how to not do that, the dark night of the soul can be a fabulous way of us actually implementing a system into our life where we're asking ourselves questions, but we ask them in a much more wholesome way about us, which would be something like, how can I be the best I can be? Who actually am I? Not the story that I tell myself of me, but who actually am I? Because most of us from birth will be a certain way as a child. But then because of the conditioning and the traditional beliefs and the generational beliefs that get handed down to us, we have a blanket that's put over us. And it's like a blanket of society's expectancies that they expect of us as human beings. And this is really detrimental to most of us, and it crushes us, which is why our true self gets left behind under a world, sometimes decades upon decades worth of other people's thoughts and opinions. And so we kind of grow up and live this life as a people pleaser, if you like. It's a real common one. And lots of us people please and don't realise it. And that's, in my opinion, one of the biggest factors why most of us carry around illnesses, because all being a people pleaser does is suppress the child, if you like, the child that never actually come out, that we never met. That would be the essence of us as a being. We never met that person. We never got to tap into it. Or when we did tap into it, and those thoughts and feelings or emotions that would come out of us as children, they were crushed. If they didn't fit in with society, if those thoughts, feelings and emotions didn't fit in with our families, or if those behaviours weren't acceptable to what our parents thought were acceptable as humans, then those behaviours and that were crushed out of us. So therefore we grew up, like I say, under decades worth of suppression. That suppression will create an immense amount of anger in us and frustration, because most of our life as a people pleaser, we're not just trying to be heard. We want to actually speak in a manner that we're accepted. And what we need to actually start believing is that just as a being on this universe, as a creation of it, as something that come out of it, we are accepted. We're here. That's all the acceptance we need, is the fact that we're here. It's the ridiculousness of the social conditioning that goes on top of us, which is why we then start to feel like we're not accepted. And that's why we then seek acceptance and approval from everyone else. And if we're not very good at maybe getting that acceptance and approval back, then we never feel validated, because we wasn't validated as children. We might have been loved. That's not saying we wasn't loved. We might have been loved and mollycoddled and all the presents in the world and spoilt rotten. But if we never felt like we were actually validated, then it doesn't mean nothing as we get older, because we're going to constantly seek that approval from elsewhere. And I've digressed right off topic there, but I think I'm hoping that was quite interesting. But why we can sometimes have physical symptoms that come up in us as we go through the dark night of the soul is, excuse me, was I saying something about questions? Yeah, so when we're in dark night of the soul, we can learn how to put that into a practice of asking ourselves more wholesome questions. Because more often than not, when do we ever actually ask ourselves, who am I? It's a really difficult question to ask. I ask myself this question all the time. That's why I spend so much time alone, because it's not something that comes into my head like that. And I ask myself this probably pretty much every day, guys. I mean, don't get me wrong. When I say things like that, I'm not actually saying I go and look in the mirror every single morning and ask, who are you, Toe? No, I did, if I'm honest, I did. Back in the early days, I'd look in the mirror and I'd say all sorts of things to myself. But now as I kind of walk about, I check in with myself. It's done almost on an autopilot, because I'm very fortunate that I no longer loop thoughts in my head. You know, like, let me give you a silly example of an easy thought, because then we can always dramatise whatever I say into whatever scenario or situation. If I give some really big, bad example, if you like, you might be having a little thought that you're attaching to that's not really a big deal. But if I give you a big deal about, I'm trying to think of an example here, but if I gave you a big deal of a thought we might attach on of, I don't know, why did I rob that bank when I was younger? So if we're looping on this thought all the time, for the sake of this video, I didn't rob a bank, by the way, but for the sake of this video, you might be thinking, oh, well, my thoughts are silly because I only think about or worry about getting to the doctors on time. But if you're looping that thought in your head, you've got to make sure I'm there, because I'm normally always late for things. I don't want to be late again because everyone's going to be disappointed. So I've got to make sure I'm not late. Let me write that down. Oh no, I'm not going to remember how I wrote that down and where I put that. That's what I'm talking about. They don't have to be big, massive thoughts that we attach to. A lot of us spend our time looping on these tiny little thoughts, and there might be dozens of them going on at once. That doesn't allow us any space to actually ask ourselves how we are and who we are. And again, that sounds woo-woo, but it's not. It should just be, like I say with me now, that's something that's kind of automatic. I don't think about that. Where I'm not looping on these thoughts, I have the space to feel myself and know that I'm okay. I'll know when I'm doing, I'll feel it in my body that I'm not doing something that maybe I want to be doing. And it might take me several hours to actually think, oh, I'm doing that. That's why I've got, and then it comes back to you. And that part there, just digressing slightly, that's the whole part that I say in my other videos when we can dip in and out of the matrix. So the matrix is the material world, as we all know, the one that's conditioned into us. But for sometimes, just for the sake of the video, I can say we can dip into the matrix or back into our egoic self without that knowing. But as long as there's a bigger awareness of ourself all the time, we'll notice when we're doing that, and we'll pick up on something that we might be doing that's being a bit detrimental to us in that moment. We'll pick up on it quite quickly. And that's the beauty of when you start to stop looping all these thoughts, because most of the things we're thinking about, guys, are just not things that are really important. If you went forward a week, is that thing that you're worried about really matter? If you go forward a month, are those things that you're worried about going to matter? Now go forward 5 years. I did read a quote somewhere which I thought was really good. If it's not going to bother you in 5 years, then don't give it more than 5 minutes of thought. You know, and I really liked that. I can't remember where I read that now. But getting back onto the topic of the actual video, which was why we can sometimes feel physical symptoms in the dark night of the soul that we might not have felt before when we was in the matrix world, if you like. Well, the reason for that is if you bear in mind everything I've just said in the first 5 minutes or so of that video, or 10 minutes now, sorry. If you think of everything I've said in the first 10 minutes of that video, all that conditioning that's gone on top of you has created a fictitious person, if you like. So in order to become that fictitious person, you have to hold a lot of tension in the body. You'd have to hold a lot of tension there. So everything from depending on what role you're playing in life, what story you're telling yourself or what story you're telling other people, you would hold yourself differently. And so your body would be carrying a lot of tension. And a lot of what you might be doing whilst you're in the matrix world, especially this use people pleasing. So if you're a people pleaser, you might always have this persona that is always trying to be nice to people, always wanting to say the right thing. I'm a nice person. I'm a good person. I just want your love and approval. So that means we can carry us, I'm exaggerating, we can carry ourselves like this tension of, I hope they like me. Do they like me? And then when that conversation's over, oh, thank God that's over. Did they like me though? Did they like me? We might not be as intense on those thoughts as I'm making it in the video, but get the point on the video, guys, I sometimes like to demonstrate it a little bit. But because of that way that we're holding our body, we'll be holding that 24 hours a day, all day for decades. So our body can kind of get accustomed to feeling that level of stress and tension. Hence why years later, lots of us get these autoimmune deficiencies and we start becoming very stressful. We can get arthritis, our joints start to hurt and stuff like that as we get older, because the body it's temporary form, isn't it? So it's naturally going to decay as it gets older. However, we can speed that process up tons by stressing and holding this stuff in the body. So if you can imagine that whilst you're there and you're holding this stress in the body, to get through those stresses, you might be eating certain foods that kind of give you temporary relief. And that might come in the way of junk foods or sugary foods. So all you're doing there is creating like an inflammation in the body. So you're putting bad habit on top of bad habit, which would be the bad habit of eating a bad food, say. And that's just one example, food. You can use millions of others. Drinking too much wine, drinking too much caffeine, smoking, drugs, whatever it might be, guys. There can be those bad habits that aren't ultimately doing our body any good. We're putting that on top of an already fake person, so it can just keep compounding and compounding on top of us. But the trouble is with that, whilst you're doing that, you might not necessarily feel so much physical pain, because you have to remember, this is the key point, you have to remember that whilst you're people pleasing or whatever role it is that you're playing, this is concentrating on playing that role. It's not concentrating so much on your body. So that's just one area where you might not notice so many physical symptoms in yourself. But what it does do is it can leave you feeling immensely just off with life. You know, like everything, just, you can't put your finger on it. Something's not right. You never feel quite good. You don't know why. You're a really nice person and you're being nice to everyone and you're eating all this food on top. And so you think sometimes that might be disguised as we think that's self-care. Like, I'll give you a quick example. I've had a really tough day today talking to everyone. I've been so nice to everyone and I deserve that, so you'll eat at McDonald's. You know, and we look at that like that's a reward. It's not. It's actually even more detrimental when you think about it. It's not a treat. It's something that's going to compound how bad you feel. So, I can take that to an example, and I'm not saying we should never, ever indulge in something that's bad for us. That's not what I'm saying. It's when we refer to that all the time, or a hell of a lot of the time, that can become extremely detrimental. Anyway, I want to bring this video back around, guys, because I've gone off topic. I could really go on all day now. I love talking about this stuff. And those of you who are talking to me, that's awesome. So it's no different. This is kind of what happens. But where we're putting all that stuff on top of our body can fall into this thing of it kind of just copes with it. You know, like it accepts that it's not functioning properly, but you might not actually know that it's not functioning properly, but the body's just not feeling right, and you'll put it down to age, or your back might be hurting because of you've had a hard day or whatever. We constantly put it down to other stuff. We don't give any thought to perhaps it's the role that we're playing, the fake identity that we're using, and then the junk that we're putting on top of that, or the junk consumption. And that junk consumption, guys, can come in the way of watching too much pornography, watching too many silly films, reading nonsense books, paying attention to the news and the TV, soaps and stuff like that, which I've said before. The whole of that stuff is just poison for our bodies and for our minds. I haven't watched any of that kind of stuff for years, and it's such a free and wonderful thing to do, to get rid of that. But also, this is why, and I say but also on top of that, so the stuff that goes on top of our body now, and sorry if I always refer back to what I said, that's how I have to teach myself. And just don't forget, there's the dyslexic guy there, so I have to teach myself in certain ways, and I'm not sure sometimes if I've said what I wanted to say or covered a point, so I have to then bring it back up for myself, and hopefully it reminds you what we're actually talking about, if I can remember what we're talking about sometimes. But yeah, so we've got our tense body like this, and we've got all the stuff that goes on top, all the junk consumption. When we get into Dark Night of the Soul, our body goes through this phase of where we can get these physical symptoms come up, where we can start to feel sick in our stomach, where we can maybe get shoulder pains, we can get neck pains. One thing with me, with my vision, everything become very bright. I squint a lot in light now. So I've become sensitive to light, if you like. It doesn't hurt. It just, my eyes are I'm much more like this. I'm exaggerating now. Much more like that than I ever used to be. Although my overall persona is so much more relaxed. And the reason I say that is because when we get into the Dark Night of the Soul, we're now tense about, our bodies are now tense about what is happening to us. That's a thought we've not really had before. We might have had thoughts of, oh, I'm so stupid, I'm going nowhere in life. But now in the Dark Night of the Soul, it's more a question of, what's happening to me? Why am I down here? And excuse me, now we're holding ourselves in a different way. So our body has shifted from this to maybe more of to a fear, like, so now it's a totally different shift. This is just the physical part I'm talking about now. But you've got to remember how we held ourselves once before could have been going on for decades. And now suddenly we've dropped that and we've gone into this new shift of our body holding itself. But also while we're there and our body has now shifted, there's this other part of us that we're asking different questions of ourselves. And maybe not just the questions, but maybe there's a part of us that, because we're down, our energy is going to be lower. And what happens is sometimes with depression and stuff like that is it's forcing us to take a rest. It's forcing our minds to just slow down, to shut up. And those of us that reach that point where we stop caring about things, we can all reach that point in the Dark Night of the Soul or in just depression, that we get to that point where we just stop giving a shit. That part right there can sometimes let go of a lot of the looping, and we can actually fall into a silence. But the silence is more coming from a place of, I feel like shit and don't give a shit in that way, rather than a healthy way of not giving a shit, which is you now see your true potential and you love yourself as a person, and therefore, because you love yourself as a person, you've got you, and you don't need anybody else to have you. And the beautiful part of that, you don't need anyone else's approval because of that. That's a healthy way of not giving a shit, for want of a better word. But whilst we're in Dark Night of the Soul, we can not give a shit just simply because we're feeling so down. So if now you take that into account, that would also mean that your body is relaxing more, because that is what depression, deep rest, is doing to you, is forcing you into that situation. So now your body's gone from this high tense state it's then shifted into a different fear mode, if you like. So you might have gone from this, the people pleaser, oh my God, I hope they all like me, to the, oh shit, what's going to happen to me? So it's a totally different shift in your whole body. Sounds very woo-woo. And it might not affect everyone in that way, but certainly for some of us will reflect our body. Our body will become a reflection of what we're thinking. I know that was my case. And now our body's going to relax. And so we can have this moment of, which can be a long time, guys. We can have this moment of now our body's relaxing. All this stuff that we've been holding, all the physical pains, everything else that might have been overlooked because of our distractions. And don't forget, we wouldn't be distracting from the physical pain. We would be distracting from the fact of maybe sitting alone and allowing our emotions and feelings to come up, because we wouldn't be thinking of there was a problem. We just take who we are as we are. And I'm pointing over there because that's the Matrix. And so in my head, it's the Matrix guys over there, and out there is the good stuff. But it's, so we wouldn't be thinking at that point, whilst we're in the Matrix, that we need to allow our feelings to come up. We don't pay attention to that. We're too busy concentrating on pleasing people, pleasing ourselves, and moving forward in life and relationships, job, money, house, car, kids, death. You know, we're kind of thinking of all of that and what other people think of us and stuff. So we wouldn't be thinking of allowing ourselves to sit down and give ourselves 5 minutes to allow our thoughts and feelings to come up. So we distract from them. But now in the dark night of the soul, we do allow them to come up. Even if that's by default, they will come up a lot more whilst you're in dark night of the soul. So that's going to release all of those things that we weren't consciously aware of in our bodies. It now releases them, and we start feeling them. And we start feeling them because we've let go of some of the looping. Or I want a better way of saying that, because we still do loop heavy in the dark night of the soul, which is what keeps us stuck. But our thoughts that we're asking are slightly different. And so there's this shift. And so now it's giving us more space maybe, and we're paying attention to other things because our thoughts have all changed and the questions we're asking ourselves have all changed. Along with that comes this whole host of, and my body feels really shit as well. But that can be what happens to us in the dark night of the soul. But I just want to say this little part as well, and this is my experience of what happened to me, guys. So if you're feeling real detrimental physical health, then speak to someone. You know, find out more about it. I'm not a great lover or believer in Western medicine. And that's why I say I don't ever advise go and do this or go and do that. I would just say either speak to someone. That doesn't necessarily have to be professional. It could be anyone who might know about, I don't know, medicines, or just someone that you might feel has a bit of knowledge on that stuff. Talk to them and then do your own research on stuff. Well, there's a whole world at our fingertips here. And there's some wonderful people out there that know their stuff, really know their stuff. And they've got no agenda. They've got no ulterior motive behind what they're doing, apart from they're just fascinated in their subject and they want to help people, and they put videos out about it. But if you do your own research on whatever physical stuff it is, I always feel like that's a great way to go. And then you always got the fallback of the Western medicine and going to the doctors or stuff if that's the route you want to go down. But as I was saying, this is like my personal experience now. I remember my body become very painful all over. So my lower back started to really hurt. All around my lower abdominals really started to hurt. I always felt like there was something pushing in to my bladder almost. So it was this constant, the feeling you have of when you're busting for the toilet. Not quite as bad as that, but it was a constant feeling of I wanted to go to the toilet. Like I say, my eyes become sensitive, and when they become sensitive, at first that was quite painful. When they become sensitive, my elbows started to hurt, and I think that was a lot of holding the tension, all those years holding the tension, and a combination of the trade that I was doing. So that's the other thing. You always have to put on what you have been doing throughout your life anyway. May have been very physically demanding, or if you're in an office or something, you're sat at a chair, your physical posture may not have been great. if you like, but you're coping at that point. Don't forget, you don't know you was coping at that point, but you're doing all these weird, wonderful, bad, and sometimes good habits, i.e. exercise and stuff like that, but we can overindulge in that. So sometimes we're doing all these good and bad habits to compensate for the lifestyle that we have, which may have been one that we're not overly happy with. So we use other things to cope with that. But now, like I say, because we've become more aware of it, we can feel it more. So your physical, whatever it was physically in your previous life, if you like, in the Matrix life, is now you're starting to feel it all. So we always have to take that into account. But I remember, like I say, my elbows started to hurt. I got a lot of headaches. I remember getting just a ton of headaches all the time. And that might have been part of the light sensitivity was coming in, and that would give me severe headaches, where sometimes I would just go and lie in a dark room and pull the pillows over my head and just sit quietly or lay quietly there and allow. I used to I never really wanted to take tablets, so I used to just kind of try and let them wash through me, if you like, let the headache wash through me, and it ultimately did. But the point I wanted to make of that, there was a lot of other stuff, guys, as well as a nervy feeling all the time, and I'd be quite anxious and jittery, although you wouldn't think so whilst I was out walking around, because like I say, I was also very down, so there was a huge part of me that didn't really give a shit about what people thought. So there was a part of me that stayed very relaxed as well. But I also started to find a purpose at that point when I was down and relaxed. So people started to talk to me, and I found that I had a good ear for listening to what they were saying, and that's a slow progression. I mean, I don't want to go too much into depth about that now, but that was a slow progression in me that I thought, actually, I'm quite good at listening to what people are saying, and I quite enjoyed it. If you've not enjoyed it, because some of them were telling me bad stuff, but I enjoyed that whole process of I felt like I was serving a purpose, you know, which for the first time in my life, actually, I felt like I was quite useful in a genuine sense. I felt like I was quite useful to some people, and more people started to talk to me and open up to me, and then that's kind of how I really found some kind of self-belief, like, oh, I'm actually quite good at this, and I'm also good at picking up on their patterns and behaviours, because at that point I was paying so much attention to my own. So I was learning how my mind worked, which meant I could pick up on how other people's minds work, just their very simple patterns. And that kind of served the purpose. But anyway, I've digressed. But I will do another video on that, actually, because it's quite interesting. But so as I then was walking around and not caring, and like I say, I started to feel this sense of purpose. I felt that a lot of this stuff in my body started to lift, that I've become more pain-free as my dark night of the soul thoughts and feelings, and that the kind of looping and the irrational thoughts coming up, as they started to quieten, because I made sense of them. And I made sense of them, I have to point this out, I made sense of them because I spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours on my own, and I just allowed everything to come up. I allowed myself to plummet into a world of shit. I'm not going to say I think everyone should go maybe as deep as I did with that. However, I done it, and it served the purpose and worked wonders for me. I kind of feel like I have to digress off there a little bit and say to people that make sure you got some love around you if you're going to really dive into those places. Make sure you have got someone that you can reach out to if the struggle gets a little bit too much. There's nothing wrong if it gets really, really, really bad. Distract yourself for a while and go and speak to someone. You know, we all got our edge on the side of caution a little bit. But I do think we need to spend more time in the dark places and allow this stuff to come up, because I think as human beings, or just as beings, we can actually regulate our own feelings. We just don't know how, because of the blanket system that we've always been told. When something's wrong, go get help. When something's wrong, take a tablet. You know, it's kind of been installed into us that we need things out there to make us better, whereas in answer, we can actually do that ourselves. But where some of us might have spent so long in decades in the Matrix, if you like, we don't know we got that capability. So we'll have a fear of allowing that to happen, which is understandable. And so if that is you, don't beat yourself up about that. That's understandable. The dark night of the soul is a learning area. It's a learning process for you to learn all about the new person. But anyway, right, let me try and get back to where I was. I do go off topic so much. I'm going to actually start a podcast, I think, so I can just talk and leave 2-hour things up. And if people want to listen to 2 hours of me digressing all over the place, they can do. But for the videos, I really need to try and keep on topic a bit more. But I love it. I can't help it. And so I then started to feel that as my thoughts and that were changing and I become clearer about who I was, so did the physical pains. So did the physical stuff. I noticed my lower back stopped hurting as much. It would still hurt, guys, if I had a 9-hour drive somewhere, or a 3-hour drive, 4-hour drive. I'd get out the car and just think, oh, those are normal type things. But I noticed pains elsewhere started to lift as my consciousness evolved, if you like, and I started to really learn and tap into this. Oh, there's more to beings than what we've been told. Like there's a bigger presence of us. There's a more spiritual side of us, the consciousness side of us, awareness, the stillness. There's that side of us. There's the side of us that feels more connected to things. We feel like we're more, and what I deem as connected to things is not actually like a physical connection to a tree as such. I'm not one of them guys who can pick up something from out, like a shell if I'm walking on the beach and look at a shell and go, oh, look, there's me. I'm so connected to it. I'm not that guy. I feel much more just connected as part of this universe, as part of the entity that is this universe. I feel like I'm a part of that creation. I don't feel like that. I do feel like that, but I don't think about that because it now is just how it is. And let me just tell you this quickly as well, just digressing away. That's not all the time. There's non-duality and there's duality. And sometimes we're in duality because we have to live life, and life is lived in this physical form, and this physical form is in the matrix. So we have to kind of come back to that way of life and live that. But that doesn't mean this can't stay with the bigger presence of ourselves. But that doesn't mean we've got to walk around and be connected with nature and with one at all times. There might be some people out there like that. I don't know. It's not me. This is constantly free. This is constantly free. It's constantly aware of what I might be. It's hard to talk about because I don't really think about it. Of what I might be thinking or feeling. It's like a natural, it's now aware of that. And then when I'm out and if I'm walking around and I'm silent and stuff like that, then there's times when I can feel extremely connected to things. And it's a wonderful feeling of just everything feels okay. Everything feels wonderful because I'm aware I'm part of this. I am not part of the fake identity. I'm not part of that fakeness in the matrix. I'm part of this, the reality. Beautiful sunshine out there today. And sorry, I've gone off topic again there, guys. I really do apologise. So I started to notice that my body would feel freer. It could feel a lot more just calmer, where the mind was calmer. My shoulders would relax more. And it might not look it so much in this, but generally I'm quite chilled out. But I'm sitting upright a little bit because I've got to look in the camera. But my body felt calmer. It felt more relaxed. It felt more chilled out, if you like. So therefore, a lot of these feelings that I had, I started to become very aware of, were literally thoughts. And how attaching to a thought of a pain in my elbow, by attaching to that thought, like, oh, what's this? What's constantly questioning it, if you like, it made that feel worse because I was hyper-focused on it. I started to realise in the dark night of the soul, when you're feeling down and shitty, this, that, and some of this stuff felt like it was lifting. Some of this stuff felt like it was kind of going away from me. Do I still have aches and pains? Of course. I'm still an ageing being. So we have to, like I say, we just have to be real with this stuff. But a lot of it fell away. It really did. And a lot of that was because the mind quietened. And I now, this is the part I noticed more than anything. My belly is always relaxed. I always used to, and didn't know this, but I always used to have a nervy feeling in there all the time, a tight, tense feeling all the time. And now it's always relaxed. And that's wonderful, because when I take a big breath in, I can feel that breath go down there. And then you can feel it come back out. And that's a wonderful way to kind of go through. And that's ultimately where you lot are headed. Those of you who have gone through that, you'll know what I'm talking about. Those who haven't, if you're still here, then you're really obviously enjoying this topic. So well done for staying around this long. And I'm hoping you're finding that, well, you must be if you're still here, that you're finding that interesting. It gives you a little bit of concept as to why you might feel physical symptoms whilst you're in the dark night of the soul, or whilst you're just very down about things, where's your life headed and stuff like that. Maybe there's a part of you that whilst you're depressed, and like I say, depressed, as if you break the word down, it's now you've gone into that, things are lifting, or your body's shifted, and so now you're feeling other things. And in my case, most of them removed themselves, or perhaps maybe they're there, but I now don't associate myself so much with the physical being. That doesn't mean, like I said, I want to be clear here, that doesn't mean I don't feel pain. If you was to hit me with a hammer, that hurts. I feel that, you know. It's like, not that you become invincible, so don't need to think that, because I've only say that because I've seen some videos where, particularly in the non-dual world, where if they've got, they can tell you that nothing exists and that kind of stuff, and then I'm kind of always there thinking, okay, well, if you come down to my boxing gym and you get punched in the mouth, that's going to hurt you. So I get the concept of you don't exist, because our body is temporary, so it will falter out and go back to the universe. So I kind of get that. However, whilst we're here, we are a physical form, and that physical form can hurt. We have to face up to that. You know, it's like, so I always like to keep this and keep the spiritual, my spiritual way of being, guys. That's my spiritual way of being. I like to keep that real, of how I see things. But yeah, that's ultimately why we can feel physical symptoms. And in my case, like I say, I don't want to give false hope to anyone, but I think I would certainly think to a larger degree that once we start to learn in the dark night of the soul, we learn our new self, and we get that self-belief and the self-love starts coming through. I'm going to actually do a video on self-love, because I think people actually don't really know the true meaning of that. And we start feeling that love and respect for ourselves, and we relax more into the universe, into this beautiful place that we actually are, where we're here, kind of, we're able, check this out, we're able to observe ourselves, not just in the mirror, like look at, but if a bird had consciousness, right, if a bird or something sitting in a tree was actually consciously aware that it was here, and it could sort of think things like we do for ourselves, I bet as we walk through it would go, oh my God, there's one of those humans. Look, they're fantastic. They could do everything. We don't see ourselves like that, unfortunately. But when you come out the dark night of the soul, you start to feel that bigger presence and that essence. You do start believing and feeling that a lot more, and that's a wonderful place to be at. And that is ultimately when we settle into the dark night of the soul and we surrender to it. That is ultimately where we will go. Indulge in a good, healthy spiritual practice. Look after yourself physically, so plenty of water, lovely healthy foods. You'll get to learn what things are toxic to you and what's not good for you and stuff. Those things will naturally start, you will naturally start cutting them out. So look for them. You know, give yourself that silence where we should sit alone. Look for those things that are maybe causing you toxicity. And always, guys, I'll give you another gentle one. Maybe you're just drinking too much caffeine, as well as lots of other stuff. But that's why I say look for those areas, and you'll find them when you're in the silence. But anyway, I think I've gone on far too long. I actually thought that would be about probably 8 or 9 minutes, that video. It's gone on for 40 minutes, but I'm going to upload it because I think we covered some valuable points there for those guys who, like I say, some of you really enjoy the long form and some of you like short form. So I want to cater for both. I like doing long form because I can stay a bit more relaxed, and I feel like I can cover more grounds of, as I start talking, guys, things come into my head that I think, what did I want to hear when I was really down? What did I want to hear when I was really stuck in that dark night of the soul and didn't know what I was going? And as I speak, stuff comes in. I'm like, oh, is that valuable in this one? So sometimes I'll insert it, and that's why I can put them all into the video. But either way, I hope you found that interesting. I hope it gives you some little bit of relief, or maybe some breathing space, or it just helps you just relax maybe for 40 minutes, because you're not thinking, you're not so much in your head, and you're more sharing your head on this. Right, I'm going, because I don't know what I'm going on about. But right, guys, I love every one of you. Thank you to the new subscribers. I'm 5 away from 600 subscribers. It's unbelievable. And yeah, to the guys who are always commenting, the guys who answer other people's questions and that, thank you so much. It's really creating a wonderful place here. And I look forward to seeing and speaking to a few of you in the week this week, which is awesome. So I look forward to that. Right, guys, I hope you have a great week. Love every one of you, and peace. Thank you so much. Oh, it's a beautiful blue day here today. You can see this, and it's only about 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'm going out for a big long walk along the river today, which is going to be awesome. Right, guys, bye-bye.